Welcome to The Spill, the first episode for 2022, and we're back discussing women's health topics. Today on The Spill, we'll be talking to a young lady who went through having a hysterectomy. So please stay tuned for this episode. And I'd like to thank our sponsor for today's episode, Nature's Discount Dominica. As usual, thank you so much for your support.
I visited Nature's Discount at 7 Great George Street in Roseau, where I had an interesting and informative conversation with staff about weakened immune system and ways to strengthen, change one's lifestyle and diet. They recommended supplements and teas, explaining what each is good for. As I browsed, I noticed vitamin, herbal, and mineral supplements, sports nutrition, men's, women's, and children's health products, dairy alternatives, healthy snacks, herbs, whole foods, and more. Pay a visit or call 440-0175.
Aisha, welcome to The Spill.
Thank you.
It is so nice to have you on, and it's the first show for 2022. So I am very happy that you consented to be our guest today on The Spill. Aisha, you've gone through some interesting experiences, and I'm really interested in you sharing that with our guests.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, you had a hysterectomy, but I want to know, what was your perception of that organ, that womb that you had removed? What was your perception of that as you grew up, as you were a young woman? Did you have this association with the womb and your womanhood in any way? What did you feel about your womb?
Honestly, I didn't think about my womb very much at all. I mean, I grew up Catholic, so I grew up saying like, fruit of the womb, Jesus. That's basically like the idea I had behind womb. You know, when you're in bio class in high school, you learn about the reproductive system. So I definitely learned about the uterus, you learned about periods and this sort of thing, but I never really associated my womb with womanhood. And I think perhaps that has to do with my general not planning on being a mother. So I never really thought really about my womb equating to my womanhood.
Okay, so that's interesting. So what is your view, or what was your view on having children? So you're saying you never really thought about that.
Right.
So in all the talk, because ladies know, that comes up very often. All the talk about being a mother and that being, the best experience that you can have. What was that ever, did that ever have an effect on you? What were your general thoughts on having children?
Okay, well, I personally never wanted to have children. And I knew that very, very early. I think, you get your period, and one of the things you learn about is, fertilization and trying to avoid it as a young person. And then, as when you get older, wanting to have children. But I never wanted to have children. I felt that very strongly from a young age. And when I would state that, when the topic would come up, people would say, oh, you're young still, you would change your mind. And when you're young, you kind of tell them, well, no, I'm not going to change my mind. It's something that I feel. Just as how some people feel very young, like, I want to be a mother. I can't wait to have a child. I can't wait to see what my child will look like. I never had that. So honestly, that's just from very young and throughout my life. I'm almost 40. I'm actually my 40th year. And it has remained the same. Do not want to be a mother. Never wanted to be a mother. But I'm a really great aunt.
And that's an important viewpoint to share, because some women might not even think that other people share that viewpoint and they have that exact viewpoint as well. Because people put so much pressure sometimes on women and having children, that women who may not want children may feel like, okay, I can't say that. You know what I mean? So it's important that you shared that it was not something that you personally wanted to do, and that's fine.
Yes.
That's perfectly fine. So what were the circumstances then that led you to having that hysterectomy? What was wrong? What was going on?
Okay, so actually, for me, I got diagnosed last November, and what happened was that I had like a very severe pain in my sides, and I'm very close with my friends, and we talk about things all the time. And I had mentioned I had the pain. It actually was like when you get a cold sweat, like you're in pain so much that you get a cold sweat, and I let that pass. I figured, oh, perhaps my period is coming, because I had started getting very heavy periods. And then I also was getting like a whole week of symptoms leading up to my period. So that would be like crampings, headaches, back pain, even my leg feeling very numb. But I honestly thought, oh, my body's just changing. And that is like what is happening. Like I went from having very light periods to having like really heavy periods. And I just felt, okay, I knew of women who always had bad colic and stuff. I never experienced it when I was younger, and I was just like, oh, finally I'm getting periods like how other people get periods, right?
Okay.
Not realizing like, oh, no, actually, how I was getting my period before was the normal way.
Right.
And what I'm getting now is a problem. So in speaking, just letting my girls know, I had this pain, and then it came back, but like less severe. And, they all said, you have mentioned this a few times, you need to go to the doctor. And I'm usually an annual doctor checkup kind of person, but because I associated that pain with my period and I had normalized having this period pain, I didn't feel like it was a doctor worthy trip.
Right.
But thankfully, I did go, and my GP examined me. There was a physical exam as well as, like speaking to each other as to what the issue was. And then he said, I think either and you have a urinary tract infection and you have fibroids. So he ordered both a urine test as well as a scan.
Okay.
So from then, I found out, well, I had both. And they were related because the fibroids were pressing down on my bladder.
On the bladder, okay.
And then it was sending the urine back into the kidneys and causing me to have more frequent incidents of UTIs. So that pain was like,
okay.
an infection.
Okay, so the fibroids, then was it one fibroid or multiple fibroids?
They didn't give me a number. It was like all encompassing the womb.
Oh, okay.
And after my hysterectomy, you have to do a biopsy. So there was like a 5 centimeter one that was like right in the entrance of my womb. So it was a mess.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So we had spoken about fibroids in another episode of the Spill. It's such a common issue with women.
Yeah.
And for you, your treatment included doing that hysterectomy, removing the womb completely. When you decided to do that, when you and your doctor discussed and you decided, what were your feelings about that decision? Was it a decision you came to easily, or was there some back and forth and uncertainty? How did you feel?
So once I got to see the specialist, my gynecologist, what I really liked is that she basically took off a paper and like did a little drawing showing me basically what the uterus looked like based on the scan, what the fibroids. So she was the one who did like the circling to show me the location of the fibroids. And then she walked me through all of the options that's available, including things like herbal remedies, the fact that sometimes you can, stop the flow of blood to the fibroids, the going in and removing the fibroids, as well as the hysterectomy. So she was like, these are the different options that's available. This is what we can do in Dominica, but this is what is available generally.
Okay.
And then she walked through the pros and cons of. So she was telling me, based on the location of my fibroids and the fact that it's like pressing down on my bladder, surgery was needed. So it's a matter of whether she goes in and tries to remove them as that one option, or she goes in and remove the entire womb. And then she walked me through the pros and cons of both. So for the removal of the fibroids, one of the cons could have been that they do not get all of them. Another con was that there's a possibility of regrowth, even if they were to get all of them. With the hysterectomy, the cons, like you're taking off a part of your body. So there's that. And like you talk about, sometimes people have attachments to the womb and womanhood. And if you remove that, but for me, she told me what I considered pros of the hysterectomy, which was no pregnancy. I already didn't want children, so that was like
decided already.
Okay. No more physical periods. I was like, cool, that's great. And removing the possibility of regrowth. Yeah. So for me, the biggest thing when she was talking about removal, the regrowth part really freaked me out. I was like, I am not having this surgery more than once. In getting the diagnosis and speaking to people, I actually found out a friend of mine had 2 surgeries already for fibroids. Right? I was like, what? I did not know, because once you start telling people of your diagnosis, then everybody starts telling you the story, right? And she's like, the way I'm feeling right now, it feels like they're coming back. I'm like, that's a horror story. Why?
So you did
Why
not
you
want
saying
that?
that? I did not want that.
Okay.
So for me, I was like, I'm almost 40. And then she was also telling me that if you go in and have the surgery, the most fertile that you would be is about like a year or so after the surgery. If you want to have children, try to have the baby within that time. And I'm
Meaning
like,
if you had just removed the fibroids?
Yes.
Okay.
Right? Because it could affect your fertility. And I was like, I don't want any babies. And I'm definitely not having a baby within a year of this. So honestly, I think because of the fact that I did not want children, and the fact that I did not want the possibility of regrowth, the hysterectomy, once she said that, like, I felt like, okay, that's the one I want. And then she was like, but obviously, think about it. You don't have to make a decision right now. Read up about it and then choose which one that you think is best for you. So it was a pretty easy decision for me.
Right. So when you weighed that, possibility of regrowth of those fibroids, and also the fact that you didn't want to have children, it was a pretty easy decision for you.
Yeah.
That's understandable. So you went ahead, you made the decision, you have your surgery scheduled, you do the surgery. Was it a complete hysterectomy, by the way, or partial hysterectomy? Partial. Okay.
Yes.
So you have the hysterectomy done, and after the surgery, how do you feel after? Well, first of all, this is major surgery. How did you feel after? What was your physical pain level like? How did you recover from the surgery? How did you handle it? How did you feel?
Okay. So before my surgery, one of the things that the fibroid was doing, it was like making my stomach bigger, right? So I thought it was normal weight gain, but there was like the whole bottom of my stomach was like hard, like, you know, like your fat is nice and soft,
Yeah, the
like,
fibroid
but the
belly.
fibroid is like, right.
Solid.
Yeah. One time my niece was actually sleeping over, and then like he come to cuddle, and she's like, "Auntie, your stomach hard."
Oh gosh.
I was like, yes, it really is. Right? So there was like this constant feeling of like something foreign in there. And when I woke up from my surgery, I mean, like the next day when I'm conscious and stuff, I felt so light. I'm like lying on the thing in pain and all of that. Well, not in pain because you're drugged up in the hospital, but like, you know, like weak, and but I felt so light. I felt so relieved. I was saying that to my doctor. I was like, I can feel the difference already.
Okay.
I could feel it. Like I was so happy. I was so happy. And then, like you said, it's major surgery. One of the things they tell you, you need to walk as soon as you can because you want to prevent blood clots.
Right.
So I had to walk. My friend was there with me, who had the surgery previously. So she gave me a lot of information. So I think, like for me, I had surgery before, but it was on my leg. I had broken my leg. But this one was very much, I guess women who go through gynecological procedures are where you're pretty much exposed.
Right.
There's a lot of like yes that goes on. So honestly, I just remember being very happy and having read up as to what to expect.
Right.
I was familiar, and I just kind of like took it slow, started walking. You're on very regulated pain medications, so you're more or less comfortable, but walking is a little bit difficult and painful.
Okay.
But for me personally, I think I had a really good recovery.
So, how many weeks would you say it took you in total to recover completely?
Okay, so basically most of the literature says 6 weeks. So the way it works is that you are mobile from the hospital and you are encouraged to walk regularly. For me, but you're on medication
Okay.
and you smell like a dispensary for the first week. You're a lot of antibiotics, and also it's stomach, abdominal stuff. So you the first time you have to pass gas or use the bathroom, it's gonna be a little bit painful,
Okay.
or not painful. But over time, you do heal well if all goes well. And for me, thankfully, I had no complications. My womb, everything, no infections. So I think I hit all of the expected recovery time, the 6 weeks. When I did my checkup, everything was good.
Was good.
Yes,
Okay.
I could return to work then, etc. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So far you've revealed that you felt light after the surgery. Immediately your recovery was textbook. You had no complications and
Right.
you recovered well. But through that whole process of recovery and after the surgery, did things occur that you maybe did not know would have occurred? You seem to have done a lot of reading and planning ahead of time. But was there anything that you didn't expect? And maybe you would say, boy, if I had known this about this surgery, I would have done this or I would have done that. Was there anything that was unexpected for you about the process?
Interestingly, not the surgery itself or the procedure. I think one thing that in researching hysterectomies and well, the history of gynecological science and stuff, you find that it's one of those sciences where black women, were used to do experiments,
Yeah.
right? There is a history of forced sterilization of Black women, and the issue of hysterectomy can hit very hard. You
Okay.
know, as a Black woman, to, you know, I don't know if certain people feel like, you know, you kind of need to birth a new generation. And I mean, in my particular situation, nothing was forced on me. I had the option, and I really want to advocate that do not take a hysterectomy as the first choice. You know, please do your research, find out if there are other options for you. So I would say not about the surgery itself, but what I wish I knew before was that having really terrible periods is not the norm.
Right.
When you feel changes in your body, you need to check that out. I wish I had seen my specialist a lot more regularly. I kept putting off getting a gynecologist.
Right.
You know, I think like for some people, if you once you do your pregnancy and stuff like that, you have to go see a gyno, right? And then because I was avoiding pregnancy like the
Then
plague,
you didn't have a reason to be regular with a gynecologist.
right? I had a reason. I was just
Avoiding it.
Like you're supposed to do your pap smear, for
Right.
example, right? Even if you're not, you know, pregnant, you have as women we have reasons to see a gynecologist. So I really wish I knew that. And when I knew that, I wish I had actioned that. So I think for me, it's more sort of like knowing that some of the pain that we go through with our periods, we need to not normalize that and say, oh, that's the way it is. We need to let our girls know, hey, if you're having problems with your period, that might be a reason to see a doctor and discuss and explore different ways of what might be wrong and seek treatment. Because had I perhaps done that and had screening earlier, I could have got the fibroids when they were, you know, smaller and
right.
had interventions like changing my diet or exercise and various other traditional
Methods,
options that might be out there that I could have tried, and then surgery becoming the last option as opposed to finding them when they were so big and like pressing down on my other organs and then having to like make that decision about the surgery. It was basically which surgery I wanted to do. It wasn't a matter of whether I needed surgery. So I think like that for me is looking back is what I think about, not really the surgical intervention I chose, but all the things that led up to me having this issue. And you basically have something growing inside of you, unknowing, causing you so much discomfort. And a lot of people talk about the physical discomfort. For me, in hindsight, what I looked at is all of the emotional and mental discomfort I went through, not knowing, because one of the things they said is like fibroids, one of the reasons that it could develop is because of a hormonal imbalance. And I'm a person that try to be very chill. And in the last 3 or so years, I was going through such like mental and emotional anguish, you know? And I remember one day being at work and I literally felt rage, you know? And I had to take a walk. I could not stay there a minute. And I'm the person who feels rage, or even when I'm get angry, my anger is cold. My anger is not a boiling anger. And another time I remember we had like this really great family gathering. It's New Year. I love this party. We do it every year. And I just remember just feeling bleak. Like I just want to go home. These are like my best people, and I just like
You weren't in it.
yeah, and I have to be like forcing the smile, forcing to eat, like, and not knowing that this is actually a result of being sick, not knowing that I'm sick in this particular way. So I think the emotional and mental aspect of fibroids is something that we don't talk about enough, and there's a lot of depression that's associated with that type of condition. So I wish I knew those things, and that would have helped me, I think, more.
And you raise an important point, and it has come up on previous episodes of this spill as well about, not just normalizing pain and, painful periods and things that seem, to be a bit much, but just normalizing it and not seeking any sort of care or any sort of, medical advice. So I'm happy that you brought that up and you're reinforcing that. It's important to check yourself out. It's important to go to a gynecologist and get things sorted out as women. I know women who have never been to a gynecologist, and I'll keep saying that it's crazy that, by a certain age, you've never, had your reproductive health checked out or done anything with your reproductive health. So I really like that point that you're bringing up. That's a very strong message, I would say, to our audience. And Aisha, we wrapping up, but we cannot wrap up without talking about sex. Sex is important, and I want to know, with all this association of the womb being this vital female organ, which it is, and you having it removed through a hysterectomy, what kind of impact did that have on you? And you brought up emotional and psychological impacts just a while ago. So you could tell me both, what kind of impact did that have on you and your sexuality, your sexual experience, both psychologically and physically? What was the difference, if any?
So because I was depressed, because I had this hot thing in my stomach is big, and it really affected my self-image and my self-confidence, my motivation more than anything. I didn't want to be with anybody, but not even my friends, much as for thinking I'm a single person to like looking out for guys and stuff. Like that's the last thing on my mind. My sex drive was basically zilch.
Right.
I'm not even attracted to myself, like seriously. So I think that was the reality, and it wasn't like even something that was high on my priority list. Generally, men are not, but they slipped even further down.
She did not say that, or right.
Yeah. So after surgery, it started with just walking to not get blood clots, but then it became walking for fun. Got some YouTube people that I liked. I don't like to go outside, so it's indoor walking, but it's fun. And I lost some of the stomach fat. Well, it wasn't fat. It was like
the fibroids.
The aliens, right, are gone. And remember that I'm cute.
Right. So that vibe started to come back.
Yeah, the vibe come back, and then like it made it so that when you see someone nice, you kind of like, eh.
Okay.
So it definitely made a difference. Yeah,
right.
For sure. It greatly improved like my self-image and my vibe and everything. I think like I'm so much more myself, and actually a better version of myself in a lot of ways, because the emotional part of it, I was very happy to seek counseling, get professional help, and then also just get into that. I've always been someone that is big on self-improvement. So it just kind of like reaffirmed that for me. And it's very gratifying to like, hear from my friends and stuff like that, how they see my growth and how that has affected them too. So I'm like, oh, great. Like,
and I'm sure it has inspired them too, and people who were maybe hesitant to do certain things like get a counselor, get a therapist. I'm sure your story will be inspired because your story is so real and your experiences are definitely relatable. Definitely relatable. So now we post hysterectomy, we feeling ourselves a bit more and the vibe has come back. So so things have improved. And that's good.
For sure.
That's good. That's good. So Aisha, I think we'll wrap up here. It was a pleasure to have you on the spill, and I appreciate, your candor and you just letting us know what that experience of having that hysterectomy was like for you,
Yeah.
and how, things changed afterwards. So thank you once again for being on the spill, and thank you for sharing everything that you shared.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
I visited Nature's Discount at 7 Great George Street in Roseau, where I had an interesting and informative conversation with staff about weakened immune system and ways to strengthen, change one's lifestyle and diet. They recommended supplements and teas, explaining what each is good for. As I browsed, I noticed vitamin, herbal, and mineral supplements, sports nutrition, men's, women's, and children's health products, dairy alternatives, healthy snacks, herbs, whole foods, and more. Pay a visit or call 440-0175.
Thank you so much for looking at this episode of The Spill. Remember, if you liked this episode, and I'm sure you did, make sure to share so that your friends and family can get a chance to look at it too and be a part of this discussion on women's health topics. Thank you so much to our guest for agreeing to share her story with us today on The Spill. And thank you to our sponsor, Nature's Discount Dominica, for their continuous support of The Spill. Remember, Women's Health Plus. Like, share, subscribe.